Hello and welcome to the painting party. I'm Julie Swanson Davis for Blick Art Materials. I'm also a painting designer and an instructor at an art studio where we believe anyone can enjoy painting. Even if you've never tried it before, you can create this Asian-inspired piece of art. I'm going to take you every step of the way, so just follow along and pause the video when you need to. To paint the orchids, I've chosen to use a 12 by 16 canvas panel. If you'd prefer to use a stretch canvas, you certainly may. Canvas panels are an economical option, but they can warp if your paint is very wet or if you use it heavily. For our design today, it's fine though, and because I'm using a new material, I can kind of keep the cost down this way. Now this antique gold leaf background is actually a foil paper. It comes on a roll, so I've cut a piece about 2 inches wider than my canvas. To adhere it, I'm going to just need some plain white glue, and I happen to have Elmer's with me today. A couple other things to have ready. You'll need to have a pencil, a sheet of regular copy paper, paper towels, water, and of course you'll need paint and brushes. So take a look first at my palette. I have a sheet of disposable palette paper in a plastic tray, and I've loaded it up with 2 pumps of burnt umber, 2 pumps of burnt sienna, 3 pumps of fluorescent violet, 3 pumps of blockout white, 1 pump of deep yellow, 2 pumps of black, and 1 pump of chromium oxide green. Now when I refer to pumps, that's using the paint from a pump out of a half gallon, like the ones that I have over my shoulder here. If you're not using a pump, if you're using perhaps a pint or quart size version, just take a look at my palette and get approximately that amount of paint on it. Okay, I'm ready to go, are you? So let's get started. Make sure you have on your apron and your sleeves pulled back. Okay, we're going to begin by folding the piece of copy paper in half lengthwise, like so. Now position this in the middle of your canvas panel. You're going to have about the same distance on either side, and on the top, a little bit more here at the bottom. And then you're going to trace around using your pencil directly on the canvas panel. So that we've got a nice rectangle here in the middle. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do, I've already done, is I've taken some of my Elmer's glue and I've mixed it up in a small bowl here with some water. Next thing you're going to need is your gold foil paper. So here's what I'm going to have you do with this first. Crumple it into a ball like so, and then open it back up again. Turn it over and crumple it that direction. Strange, I know. But what we're doing here is we're taking that gold coating that's on the top and we're forming cracks, fissures in it. You can't see them because they're so tiny, but they're there. All right, I'm just going to smooth that out a little bit now and start to tear some pieces off. Now you could cut this if you want to be super neat and tidy about it, but I'm just going to tear it into chunks like this. You're going to be using the straight edge, so keep some of those. Notice how I'm kind of leaving the center of the sheet. Okay, let's take this piece right here. I'm going to open that paper back up again so that I can use that to protect my tabletop. Turn the sheet back over and let's brush the back side with the glue and water mixture, like this. Position a straight edge along the box that you made and just smooth it onto your canvas. panel. And anything that's at the edge, you're just going to wrap around like so. Now, you might need, I was not super careful about getting it to the edge, and I don't want it to curl up, so it's kind of a good idea to go in with just a little bit more glue on the edge to make sure it lays down. Have a paper towel handy, and just burnish it down with your fingers in the paper towel. Now, you don't want to use any sort of a special tool because that paper is pretty delicate and it might tear. Just your paper towel or your fingers will work just fine. And when you're done and it's dried, it's going to look like this one that I have here. When you come to the edges, just wrap everything around the edges like so. And you can see where I have some torn lines on this one. First of all, I'm going to paint the white part here in the center. That'll give my glue a little more time to dry. Well, mine's dry, but you'll need a little more time for it to dry. I'm not being super perfect about this. I'm getting it close to the edges, but mostly I'm just filling the middle part. And if you have some pencil lines that are showing, you might want to paint the white over it so that you can hide some of those pencil marks. Now, I'm not going to clean out my big brush here. I'm just going to take a little bit of yellow paint on that. And we're just going to brush a little bit of yellow into that background like so. All right, now I'm going to wash out my brush. And now I'm going to cover the gold with a little bit of antiquing. We'll start out with some of this dark burnt umber and just work a section at a time. Let's start down here in the lower left-hand corner because that's what's closest to me. And I'm just going to cover that corner with some brown paint. And then take a paper towel, and I'm just going to lightly brush that paper towel around so that I can kind of get rid of my brush strokes and push some of that brown paint down into the cracks and fissures. Okay, now I'm going to continue by bringing the brown paint up the side. Now, when I got to the edge there, it's a little dicey, so you can stay away from that edge and just kind of push it maybe over a little bit. If you do get it into the white area, which you probably will, I did a little bit there too. We can always go back and paint over that with some white paint and touch it up again later. All right, I've loaded up a couple of paper towels, and now I have the whole gold area covered with some antique looking brown paint. So now let's move on to our medium brush. We're going to create the vase for the orchid. The aesthetic usually for display of an orchid is to put it in a very simple vase so that the attention is all drawn to the flower itself. So let's just make a very simple square. So I've got my bright brush, my little square medium brush. I'm loading it up with some black paint. And down here in this corner, these brushes are really great if you use them just on their wide side like this. You can get a real straight edge very easily. Just remember, turn it. Okay, well, I'm going to put that brush in the water now, and I'm going to create the stem of the orchid coming out of the pot here. Now, don't be afraid, because orchid stems certainly do not have to be straight, and as anything, they're going to be a little bit crooked. All right, so we're going to find the middle of our pot here. Okay, and I'm just going to put a dot where I want to start the stem. And then I'm going to come up here to the top part of this white box and probably about an inch in from either direction. I'm going to put another dot. Then I'm going to come over to the side of my box and put another dot, about halfway down and about an inch in that direction. Okay, now let's play connect the dots. I'm going to connect this dot with the line, and see, I just missed it. That's okay. I'm just going to make it a little thicker at the bottom. And then I'm going to arch from this dot up in the air and bring it down to that dot and go over the top of that. So it kind of is a hook shape. Okay, then just, to make it more of an interesting plant, I'm going to come in off the right side and I'm just going to hook a little bit over that direction, make another stem coming off there. And I'm going to start up here about where that dot was, and let's just make another one that comes off the side. This might be a good time for you to turn off the video. Give it a little bit of dry time. Grab yourself a nice glass of wine, go visit with your friends who are there painting with you, and then come back to the painting in just a few minutes. Well, welcome back. I hope you had a good break. I'm ready to start painting some green leaves now at the base of my orchid plant. We have a chromium oxide green over here, and I'm still using the small brush. Okay. Now with these small brushes, it's real easy to get them overloaded with paint, and it's hard to control. So if you've got a big glob of paint on your brush like this, it's going to be hard to control. So when you're using the small brush, I recommend that you take off some of the paint so that you can still see the shape of the brush, like this. All right, I'm going to start at the base of my stem, and I'm just going to make a line that curves up and over to the left. And let's do one more like that, maybe above it. When you hold a brush real close to the end here, it's real easy to control. I kind of like to hold it back a little bit further when I'm painting things like leaves. That just lets me see more what the brush is doing and less of what my hand is doing. Now it's time to start right in with the orchids. We're going to build those a few petals at a time. So don't worry. Our violet paint here, our fluorescent violet, this is such a beautiful orchid color. It's just perfect for it. However, it is a little bit thin. You can kind of see when I paint it out on the palette paper like that, it's just a little transparent. So I'm going to move part of this over to the side, and then I'm going to scoop up just a little bit of this white paint and mix that in with that color. Not so much that I want to change the color. As a matter of fact, I just moved a little more purple paint because I probably had a little too much white there. There we go. It's not that I want to change the color all that much. I want to keep it still a deep purple. But I'm adding opacity to it now. See that? It's a much more opaque color now. Okay, along the stem that's hanging down here, the branch of the orchid, I'm going to create what I call a trefoil shape. It's 3 circles right next to each other. So here's one on this side of the branch. Okay, and here's 2 on this side of the branch. Don't worry if they're not exact circles. Nature doesn't make perfect circles very often. And the third one is going to come right down on top of the branch. Okay. I'm going to put another one down here at the very edge of that branch. These little brushes, you have to go back and forth quite a bit to your palette to be able to get enough paint. And stick one up here. This one I think I'm just going to leave as if it's an orchid about to open. So I'm going to put one petal. And let's see, I think I'll do another one over here. And maybe a couple of the fully opened orchids up along this branch. As the branch curves, I don't necessarily need to tilt the angle of my flowers to follow it. Leave your small brush in the water. Let's go back to our medium size, our bright brush, and make sure that it's clean. Now I'm going to go to this lovely brownish red here. This is burnt sienna. And I'm just going to add a little bit of this to my pot over here on the left side. Kind of blend it towards the middle a little. And this is a lovely antique color going on here with the background and the burnt umber that we put, the dark brown. But I kind of want it to be more of a rose gold, maybe with a little bit of copperish highlights to it. So now I'm going to brush some of this reddish brown over the top of it. And just as we did with the dark brown, we're going to have paper towels on hand. And we're going to lift some of that away. We still want to be able to see all that beautiful shiny gold through there. But do you see how this just kind of warms it up, gives it a little more color? I think I need to add a little water to move it a little easier. You might need to as well. And I don't have to cover it nearly as well as I did with the dark brown. Just kind of here and there. There. Now we're going to come back and put some more petals on our orchids. Now, we started out with a darker violet. For the top petals, I want to go with something a little bit lighter than that. So I'm going to use the color that I mixed up, but now I'm going to mix in a little bit more white. So we're getting more of a light pink, like that. Now if you use the small brush to mix, as I said before, look how fat it gets with the paint. So I want to make sure that I roll some of that off against my palette paper so that I can see the shape of my brush again. Now I'm going to come and start with the orchid that I began with, and on the center to either side I'm going to make 2 more petals. Doesn't really matter exactly where these petals fall, but they're just on top of the one that I did already. And they're about the same size circle. Maybe a little bit larger, but really about the same. And like I said before, if they're not exact circles, if they're ovals, if they're kind of teardrop shape, that's good. That's really the way that nature makes them anyway. Up here it's going to get a little different because of the curve, but it doesn't matter as long as I have 2 petals on top. And the ones that are just buds that haven't really opened yet, I'm just going to go ahead and put a little dot of that color, just, that's going to help you see it a little bit better, highlight it a little bit more. Just a little bit on the end of my brush, and I'm going to paint just a white streak down the side of the pot, like that. This is a highlight, so it kind of lets me know that this is a ceramic pot that's glazed. Then on each of my orchids, I'm going to paint what's known as the throat of the orchid. Okay, it's going to be underneath and between each of the petals that we just painted. And it's just a dot of white paint, just a dot. And yes, the paint underneath it is very wet. So I'm just taking a big dot of wet paint and putting it there. Okay, we've almost done it. We're to the end of it. Just a couple things. One thing is I'm going to put a little more of this brown paint on the leaves, on the underside of the leaves. I'm just going to paint a little of that brown paint, kind of almost like a shadow. Still with my small brush. You might want to bring a little bit of that. If you were like me and got your stem a little thick at the bottom, you might want to bring a little of that brown paint up into your stem too for a highlight. I'll wash that off again. And now that yellow paint. We've got the yellow in the background, but to tie it all together, we need just a touch of yellow here and there. I'm going to go back to my leaves and just a little bit of yellow on the top of those leaves. And then a dot of yellow right on the throat, the white that we did. A little dot of yellow in each of the orchids. I think I got to go back and reload the brush every time I do that, but it's there. All right. Well, I think that turned out very nicely, don't you? Now, yours doesn't look like this. This doesn't look like the last one I did. Nobody's ever looks exactly the same, and they shouldn't. Well, I hope you did enjoy it, though. That's the main thing, because painting truly is fun for everyone. Thank you for joining me, and I hope you enjoy your orchids.